Доброго дня.
Good afternoon, dear guests, dear participants, those who are here and who are watching us online. Ukraine Crisis Media Center starts its working day, and I announce the press conference concerning presentation of the risks of conflicts in communities and the development of local potential to increase social cohesion in communities. I give the floor to our speakers. Good afternoon, dear speakers, dear high guests. I'm really glad that Vice President, Vice Premier Minister of Ukraine was able to join, and also the Ambassador of Switzerland to Ukraine was also able to join us, and also the research team members also participate. They returned from the field, and they will be able to bring interesting information about this survey. Maybe we won't delay the start of our event further, and I would like to give the floor to Irina Vereshchuk. Please, Irina, you are given the floor. Dear Mr. Ambassador and the mayors, heads of the communities, Genichinska and Starobilska communities, dear speakers on Zoom, can you hear us? It's important to be in contact, to be heard. Yes, we hear you well. We hear you well both from Starobilsk and Gnichensk. Good afternoon, dear participants, dear journalists. Once again, I would like to say that we are glad to be here with you. For me, this real facts is the basis of the policy. We should understand what is ongoing in the communities in order to properly take decisions that will bring effect and long-term effect, of course. I believe that as of now, we have lack of research, lack of surveys. That's why we cannot reach some solutions. And the aim is the same, to improve well-being of people who suffered from conflict, from armed aggression of Russian Federation, to help IDPs and those who are in communities and to feel some discomfort. And they feel that at the national level, their problems are not seen, maybe are not heard sometimes, or do not want to be heard. So we as power, as the president, as government, as the Verkhovna Rada, we will do everything possible in order to decrease the number of these problems. By the order of the Ministry of Reintegration, and we thank the government of Switzerland, and we thank our dear colleagues who are here today with us, who are going to present a survey. We will be able to assess the problems in the Genichinska and Starobilska communities. I have seen, and I was somewhat surprised by the results, because I had one vision. I attended the Starobilska community. I know how they look like, and I was in Genichinska community. But this survey is really important because it provided added value. And I hope that these projects would be the basis for decision making, because the mistakes of decision making, these are economic losses, and some instruments may be used inefficiently that would bring positive results. And without this effect, without this impact, people won't be able to feel that the power did everything correctly. And people now see that many things are not done correctly by power, and in this way the conflict may start. So we are going to speak about the areas of survey and what decisions will be taken in the future. But in a case, I would like to assure the heads of the communities who are with us that those things that should be resolved at the national level will resolve them together. This is about, for example, railway transportation, and in Lugansk Oblast, till the end of the year, supported by USAID, will develop the project, due to which in the next year we will finance the construction of railway line through Starobilski community. And we will do what was not done for several years. We will help communities to become, for example, an agriculture hub. This is one more project, and we will help communities with just logistics and communication, because for them it is really difficult to reach some other places because they do not have such a railway line. So these are several dozens of kilometers, but this will resolve a lot of problems within the community, and other communities will get positive effect. About Genishevsky community, I know that they have problems with water supply and electrification, and Arbat Bar. There are some protests of the citizens. There are common problems that cannot be resolved only by money. We need communication, we need openness of the communities and openness at the highest level. And I'm speaking about the Cabinet of Ministers. So once again, I would like to thank you, Mr. Carvild, and to Switzerland. And we believe that our projects will continue. We have met before, and we created a roadmap how to move forward the next year concerning cooperation and support of one another. And we thank our team for their work, and I'm ready for answers if you have questions to me. Thank you. We are really grateful to you, Irina, for this welcoming words. This is inspiring. And we would like to thank you that you've stressed this importance of constant dialogue between central power in Kiev and local power in the regions. And I know that the support of such a dialogue from one side is the priority of today's power in Ukraine and the priority of those projects supported by Embassy of Switzerland. So now I would like to give the floor to Mr. Ambassador, and I would like to thank for support that you and your embassy and your state support such research, such surveys that help not only to build the dialogue, but also to help the policies and to make it more grounded, more evidence-based. Thank you very much. Mr. Ambassador, you are given the floor.
Thank you very much. Dear Deputy Prime Minister, dear speakers, representatives of the media, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great pleasure for me to be here and to participate in today's presentation of the results of a sociological project of the Ministry for Reintegration of the Temporary Occupied Territories. It's important to see that the ministry is not shaping such an important policy out of the blue, but it gets back with a bridge to the academia to look for professional models on how to shape its policy of reintegration. It's not an easy policy. You don't invent that like this. You have to shape it in an inclusive way. And that's what we wanted to support when we gave that help to the ministry. So the project was supported by Switzerland and realized in the community of Henichesk in Kherson Oblast and Starobilsk in Lugansk Oblast. I'm of course very grateful for the presence online of the mayor of Starobilsk and of the deputy mayor of Henichesk at today's presentation. But ladies and gentlemen, I will not go into the details of the project. We have our specialists. I will be more general in my introductory word, just to remind us together what it means, such a multiple task of a reintegration policy. So let me first say that since 2017, Switzerland has established a close cooperation with the ministry and its staff in charge of shaping and implementing the reintegration policy for the temporary occupied territories of Ukraine. Reintegration is about reaching the hand to the Ukrainians that today are separated by war and occupation from the rest of the country. Reintegration is also about assisting communities in government-controlled areas that today suffer directly from the consequences of war, and those communities which host the Ukrainians that had to flee their homes. Reintegration means also preparing Ukraine for the time after the occupation, so that the important phase of reunion and reconciliation can take place with the appropriate instruments of transitional justice. As we see, reintegration has many dimensions: economic, social, infrastructural, informational, educational, financial, etc. It's not an easy task, Madam Deputy Prime Minister. You go about it, and we have discussed it together and together with other of your partners. You go about it very practically, very inclusively, straightforward, and the fact that you have convened this presentation today with the local communities present online is a proof of it. Thank you for that. I would also like to warmly congratulate, in the name of Switzerland, your ministry on the establishment of the Ukrainian National Center for Peace Building, which you launched last week. We're also glad to hear that the Kiev Polytechnic Institute and alumni of a new master program specializing in conflict regulation and mediation, a program that was supported by Switzerland, that these alumni may become valuable partners for the future work of the center. In this spirit, I very much hope that the results of the survey presented today will serve the ministry in its activities aimed at reducing tensions inside communities, as well as enhancing trust between local communities and central authorities. Again, reintegration is an inclusive work by Ukrainian for Ukraine. Thank you very much, and I pass the word back to the moderator.
Дуже дякуємо. Thank you very much, Claude Wild, and we would like to say that we really believe in the same, that academia should be included and NGOs and analytical centers should be included in the development of the policies, in order to stress once and once again that this should be all evidence-based. And here I would like to give the floor to our research team in order to start the presentation, and give the floor to Dmitro, who represents InfoSapiens Research Agency. They were working in the fields, and they are going to speak about how the colleagues were working there, and then I will give the floor to Anna Osipchuk, and she is the scientific director of the School of Political Analytics at the Academy of Kiev-Mogila Academy. Thank you very much, dear colleagues. We thank the ministry and colleagues from Switzerland, and we had our research made. We wanted to establish what is ongoing in the communities, how people perceive their situation, and in each of the communities we held one focus group with local population. These were simple, common people who provided their emotions, their views, and we analyzed them. In each of the communities, we held 10 in-depth interviews, 1 hour each. These were interviews with different groups of population. These were local government representatives, representatives of healthcare, education, and NGOs and business and law enforcement. So there were 20 in-depth interviews and 10 discussions. And I would like to give the floor to the analytical team who analyzed this data and will be able to show their results. We also carried out preliminary work to see the changes. We took also social media. We tried to see what is discussed there. Now I'm going to speak about our findings of interest. Dmitro mentioned that focus groups, these were common people, and the topics that were raised when you ask what the problems are in the community, what is of interest, and people say about the main interests in their daily lives. Here we may see that in both communities, we see common topics connected with infrastructure, and people often complain about local power, but here some issues may not be in the competence of local power, or they lack resources for resolution of these problems with infrastructure. We've asked about different services in the communities, and in both communities they provided positive opinion about schools. Of course, they had problems with distance learning during quarantine, but if we compare it with the information about medical institutions, it was a big difference. But this is not because the service is bad there. This is because something is lacking. They lack specialists, they lack specialized doctors. And this is not new for communities. This is not the first survey we carried out. We attended many communities in Lugansk, Donetsk Oblast, in controlled territories, and this problem of lack of doctors, especially specialized ones, this is an urgent problem. And even here in Kiev, we may face such a problem. So this is not a problem of the community, and it can be resolved by a community. In Starobylsk community, they have a good practice. They pay for training of young doctors, and these doctors return to their community, they work there, and it was mentioned during interviews. People know about it, they speak about it. Or, for example, some medicines are not licensed in Ukraine, and they couldn't be brought in the country, but this medicine is needed. So this is the responsibility of different parties, and it cannot be resolved at the level of one community. It needs systemic attention. And also they said about some minor problems. For example, in both communities, they mentioned the problem with the stray animals, and the number of these animals rise, and we also held one event concerning this problem. This is not about the animals, but there was a conflict between different groups because people provided different opinion how to resolve this problem. This was a new level of the conflict, and it raised the pressure in the communities. Of course, the problem of roads, lighting, public transport, and part of this problem may be resolved by the community, but some problems are broader. For example, the problem of roads. In both communities, they said that a lot has been done in this area, and they mentioned a railway line for the development of Starobylsk region, or, for example, there were some problems that need more attention, not from one community, but from the state. For example, chemical wastes in Gniechinska community. They have some problem with wastes, not only how to collect it and sort it, but also they have problems with landfills and with processing of wastes. So more agents are needed to resolve this problem. Community is not enough. Maybe several communities and the local and central bodies of power and other interested parties may be involved. So we were speaking not about infrastructure. We asked a lot about broader issues concerning reintegration, as Mr. Ambassador mentioned, about attitude of the communities to different groups of population, and what solution, how to regulate post-conflict situation in the communities. We asked about attitude towards military men, Ukrainian military men, Russian military men, and also about DPR and LNR illegal armed formations, we may call them so. And about the last one, both communities, people have one view. They said that these are bandits. And the first two groups, they provided interesting opinion that in Gniechinska community, they said that we should work to reinforce the image of Ukrainian military personnel in order to provide better perception in the community. In Starobilsk community, this was positive characteristic and descriptions. In Gniechinska community, unfortunately, there were different, not only positive characteristics. Sometimes even negative perception of Ukrainian servicemen. And when we've asked about amnesty and lustration and regulation of the conflict, people said practically in both communities they were for amnesty, for lustration, and rigid requirements for amnesty. And the majority of the participants of the interview or focus groups, they were not for amnesty on the whole. They wanted more individualized approach. So we have some stereotypes about communities, about some regions, but the survey, it does not confirm these stereotypes. And quality research in communities, we have the same results. We have surveys at the national level. We've raised this issue as well. And people are against amnesty for all. They believe there should be proper criteria for amnesty. In accordance with the law, all those who are guilty should be punished. They should be brought to responsibility. Irina said about surprises. So we had these surprises when we've read these results. There were some unexpected things. Some were expected, but they revealed in a different way. In both communities, there is big trust to elections. When we've asked about elections, especially about local ones, everyone believed that it was okay. They trusted it. There were some people who do not believe that this is a good way how to provide power to people, but at the same time they said that they believe that these elections were fair, and also they believe in central elections. So more than 90%, so they said about it that they see some violations, but the violations we see, this is about central power, but they are minor. So 90 and more percent we believe in elections. And these are impressive data for us, this high trust compared with the issue of supremacy of law. People do not believe in it, actually. So the rule of law, this is about courts, people believe, and courts, they are the example in Ukraine if we speak about corruption. People speak about corrupt courts. Of course, we have corruption in them, and we urgently need this courts reform. Without courts reform, this perception of the rule of law that is interpreted by people as to get fair decision in dispute, legal fair decision. So these issues are interrelated, and it is impossible to do this without courts reform, judicial reform. And people speak about lack of experience of corruption. They mentioned courts as corrupt, but at the same time, they said that corruption really exists, but they say that in their communities, maybe they have less money, that's why they have less corruption. So there were different explanations, but this is an interesting result that needs detailed study. This is really interesting how people assess it, how they assess their own experience, and how they assess the current situation on the whole. Also about law enforcement, I believe that this is really important. We should work on this to increase trust to police, because in both communities there were some problems with police. It's not about that police does something wrong, but there is big mistrust to police. In Starobylsk community, they said that this mistrust is connected with the fact that some policemen are not professionals, that they are too young, they do not know laws, they should be taught properly. So they respond, they come up to the place, but they cannot do anything. So we understand that here this is about maybe stereotypes, because when we ask them about problems in reality concerning them or their acquaintances, the majority of people said that they didn't have such problems, or they brought some examples, but they were not too clear why they had such a mistrust to police officers. And about SBU in Starobylsk community, they had rather high level of trust to SBU. They believe that they are professional, efficient service, and they said they trusted it, so it had positive reputation. So we see that we need more work, maybe in the sphere of communication. So this need for communication is at the forefront. We see that in Starobylsk community, they have better communication work at the local government level, because practically all participants of focus groups and interviews, they commented on what happened after community was created, and they were able to assess the changes. These changes were in Gnichevska community as well, but majority of people there, they said they didn't notice the changes. It doesn't mean that there were no changes. It means that we should increase this communication work and to make people acquainted with the instruments of democracy, participatory budget, and other issues. So I will end at that. Maybe we will share, of course, our report with you. What impressed me positively, Starobylsk community, where 75% are IDPs. So this is a big burden, but the community has positive perception of them. When we are speaking about emotions, people say they are ours, they are not foreign, this is our common pain. And I believe that this is a correct attitude. The perception of people who suffered, who lost their houses, they moved away from their territories, and we cannot measure this loss only in material terms, and we believe that we should work with this issue more. There should be proper communication, and the communication is really needed, and I thank you for this. I understand that you were also involved in this process, and this inclusion is really needed by communities, and local power should work on this issue that IDPs, they shouldn't feel limited or segregated or humiliated or those that lack rights. So in this way, we build our communities. In Genichinska community, they have only 5% of IDPs in their community. And the 75 is really a lot and really difficult. And the perception of those residents of the these people in communities, they believe that people in the occupied territories, they are hostages, and they are perceived like this. They are not some criminals. So there are many pensioners, many people who were not able to leave. They couldn't find the way to leave. And we believe that this is an important signal. We should improve cooperation in this area. Thank you. Thank you, Anna. Thank you, Irina. I believe it's time to give the floor to the representatives of the communities. I'm really glad that they were able to join online. Starobylska and Genichinska deputy head and head of the community. So I would like to give the floor to Yana Mikolaevna, Starobylska head of Starobylski Council, City Council. Thank you very much. I'm glad to see you all. I'm glad to see my colleagues. So the research like this is really important for our territorial communities. In our daily life, we see people and their attitude, but when they are supported by some surveys, by numbers, this is important because in this way we understand whether we are moving in the right way, whether we take proper decisions. The process of reintegration in all its aspects, first of all, this is about people, because people are living in this territory. They come here, they have some services, they use infrastructure, and then people provide their perception, their views about the territories that is occupied and also about the situation within the community. For us, it is really important to have this balance when community is going to perceive what is going on properly. And I may say that now, with the amalgamation of the communities, we face these challenges that revealed some problems and in rural areas and in urban areas, there are different problems, and everyone is trying to understand how to live in the new situation. And a lot of work is done by volunteers and NGOs concerning strengthening of connection between communities. It's a pleasure that IDPs are active participants, and they have their own NGOs and they are efficient. Also, I know that we should work efficiently, and state bodies and police, they should cooperate to strengthen the level of trust. And I believe that now there is lack of personnel. It is present everywhere. including in the police. So people, they really are concerned about their health because there is COVID pandemic, many different factors. And in our community, we have some social network. We do not have other means of communication. There is no TV or radio, and the only access, free access, to provide their emotions and opinions, this is all done in social media. And people are speaking there, and there are proponents and opponents of some ideas, and they communicate there. It is difficult to communicate because this is not about efficient solution. This is more about just providing their emotions in public space. And last week we gathered to discuss the problems of stray animals, and not many people understand this problem properly. But there are people who are ready for constructive dialogue. And when we have some social concerns, it is difficult to build this component that would help people to understand properly managerial decisions. Because there is lack of money in the budget, we cannot cover part of the oblast or part of the region because we lack resources. When I look at economic indicators, when people see it, they would like to solve the problem, of course. And at the same time, we understand that there are stages of conflict, and that at this stage we may build constructive dialogue. We cannot build a shelter for these animals, but we may have some programs that would help us to sterilize these animals, and to bring also activists to help us in this. About healthcare, approaches changed due to reform, and the rural population is very sensitive concerning this. They do not understand where to address to and how to correctly get this service, because previously they had different approaches. Now you need to communicate with your family doctor directly. And now we train people how to correctly understand the processes that are ongoing. Going back to the fact that I was in office twice, and the quality of changes that is done in Lugansk Oblast, this is something that was not seen before. And positive image and better understanding will help us to reach important thing that everyone interprets in their own way. This word is peace. Peace unites us no matter what religion, sex, or office we have. If we ask people, do you want peace? There will be 100% positive response. Yes, we want peace. And how to build it, how to perceive it, how to provide the security and comfort in community. This is work that is ongoing, and that is will always be in the process of doing. Thank you very much. Using this opportunity, because we have two heads of the communities, we thank you for your openness, because we needed some information in the course of our survey, and you helped us to communicate with the members of communities. Thank you very much for this. Now I give the floor to Alexander, head of Gnichenska ATC, sorry. I agree fully with my colleague, Yana, and with everything she said. I was elected for the second term, as she was. The matter is, we had previously 6 or more plans, big plans, and our people worked there. Now we do not have these opportunities for work, for employment, and for people it is difficult. They understand that Crimea is occupied, but many people traveled there to work in Crimea, and some people came from Crimea here. Now we do not have this. And people cannot understand why there are so many military exercises. And there are some firing exercises, helicopters are flying over, and people are not warned about these military exercises. Also, communal enterprises personnel, they come to some place, and we see that there are military men without insignia. We cannot even understand who these people are. And we call SBU and other bodies. And then in a half day, they say, oh, there are some military exercises there. Irina Andreevna came to us, Vice Premier Minister came to us, and we were provided with some documents. We thank you for your understanding of the situation, and reintegration, it starts with changes in the territories. People should see them, these positive changes. And starting 2014, there was big military equipment in our region. And this equipment was brought to protect our country. And several roads were ruined by this heavy military equipment. And people, they are not satisfied because the roads are ruined. We cannot repair them by ourselves, and in a year we prepared a draft project, and we hope that you will help us in this rebuilding. People see that connection is rebuilt, and we thank the President of Ukraine for big construction that came to our territory. Roads are being built, logistics is restarted, and we hope that people will come to us. And we have problems with roads, with water supply and sewage, and we hope for your help. About dogs, stray dogs. For 5 years, we have sterilization program for animals. We catch them, we have some cages where we temporarily hold them, then we carry out sterilization operation and bring them back to the places where they lived before. So this is a loyal system, it works. But the animals, we have a lot of them. And those who protect animals' rights, for them, this is a matter of concern that something should be done with these dogs. But we are just people and we do what we can. We have big hopes for your research that now we have the budget of 480 million budget and subsidies for 240 million. So this is our whole budget, and we need to build some homes for IDPs. We have a territory for this due to the presidential program of big construction. We are finishing the filtering stations project, and people, they express their views. I believe that this is really their right to have their own opinion. It's great that they are able to express their opinion. And when I was asked about changes, I was not able to ask all of them. So we had many issues in 2014. So they brought some heavy equipment then, and we provided also a way for our caters. But I could not speak about it on the phone at that time. So at that time, we really helped, but we don't want to disclose all this information. So starting 2015, we and our volunteers, we brought food. We provided food to our military forces, our military personnel. So we hope that our people will see improvement, and then they will see that this community and power really helps each other, and we will be able to do something good together. We will be able to provide positive image of the country, of the community, and we hope, of course, for your help. Thank you. Thank you, Alexander. Summing up the words of Alexander and Yana, I would like to say that we should not underestimate the instrument of dialogue. And this project has shown that this is really important, and there is a significant need in such events to bring external mediators, because not always the sides can come to good results without external mediation. It's important to understand that this is normal, that in the dialogue, in constructive, healthy discussion, this may be done in those dialogues that we had. These were the examples of healthy, constructive discussions. There is a big potential of these events. We should continue them in these communities and spread them out to other communities. There is request from population for this, and from different groups that may have some different opinions, maybe not a conflict, and we need proper dialogue and communication. This helps us to find common grounds on this. At this, dear colleagues, dear journalists, if you have questions, please ask. Please raise your hands and ask. Yes, there is a question. And we would like to ask about the changes in the state policy concerning reintegration. If we have a broader view, we have also Chernobyl, people from Chernobyl who were displaced, and also we include this experience. So we would like to understand the influence of this research, and it's too early to speak about the significant influence of this research because we are presenting it only now. That's why maybe this question should be asked in some time. And this was a question to Irina, to the Vice Premier, actually, not to you. Often people expect quick results right now, but this is not always possible. That's why I commented on this, Irina. So the first one, it is important information of my views. When I take decisions, we would like to have it evidence-based, not to be sporadic ones from our own experience, because of course we have our own experience, but when we take managerial decisions, we should not make mistakes, because we do not have time or finances for experiments. So this research is the basis, and this will be the basis when we take decisions concerning help to some communities. And now I see that our idea about the budget of the ministry, to have this participatory budget idea. Also, we like communication of communities and power lacks funding to improve these communications, because we need to spend time for money for communities. We should co-work, co-fund. So we may provide such an example, to build a mini facility So both local power and the central power, they should help each other. And we should understand the situation due to such surveys. And there should be proper focus on the problems. It was important for me to hear that if the community has more than 75% of IDPs, but there is no conflict. For me, this was really important information. And those communities in Lugansk and Donetsk Oblast, there are some communities that have a lot of people who had their specificity of living. They had their own ideas about how to live, their own traditions, their own views. And now the power should try to find the energy that will connect the community. They should not spread conflict. If, for example, there is a problem with dogs, if this is the biggest conflict, so we will resolve this. Important thing that people should not feel hostility, because nothing will help. No law enforcement, no money, because we see that there is lack of trust to police. And I will show this report to Denis Monastyrsky, and also about the military men, that they do not warn about military exercises, about firing exercises. People, they are afraid. They may believe that this is an act of aggression, and this should be resolved. I will go to Mr. Reznikov and I will tell him about this survey, that we can resolve these issues. So this is the result of such research. And we will plan the expenses, for example, for Starobilsk community, for education. We should work on this. And also I heard the mayors of amalgamated communities, and now I see that they are ready for cooperation, and this is important, and I believe that this is the big step, and it is really needed. Without it, it will be really difficult. We will be blind, and we should understand what people have in reality to be properly implement our activities. So maybe we are going to sum up at the moment. Do you have some questions? Maybe through Zoom? Starobilsk, Yana, please. I have a small remark. It's a pleasure to hear Irina, who understands this problem of the community. She understands both problems, small ones and big ones. So we face many different problems daily, but these are not some bursts of conflict. We should establish proper priorities that people mentioned. If we are speaking about problems of IDPs, we spoke about it. We have housing for them. We didn't have some, we didn't establish some categories. We just provided the opinion of all people of our community. And we are trying to find common grounds concerning our NGOs who represent people who protected us, who constantly cooperate with us, and also we are optimistic to resolve problems in order that provide security to our people, about law enforcement, about police. If we look at our department and about our police officers, and there is a slogan, always close to you. This is about policemen who are ready to properly cooperate with people, and also there are proper surveys concerning this, and these surveys, they show better trust to police. So we have police officers who are working in our community, and thank you very much for your presentation. We understand that your schedule is really tough at the end of the year, and we thank you for your time. This stresses the importance that this survey has for our party and for our international